the sustainable solutions for water sanitation and energy management are the blueprint to achieve better and more sustainable future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, as we gather today, we are cognizant of the fact that the city of Bulawayo and our nation is facing service delivery issues such as water shortages, erratic electricity supply, and inadequate sewage treatment and disposal. These are all challenges we must find solutions for as we sit and discuss as a collective. It is important to note that the thematic areas of this program are in line with the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which focuses on ensuring access to water and sanitation for all as well. As Sustainable Development Goal 7, which focuses on ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy. And ladies and gentlemen, over the years, the city of Bulawayo has invested in water supply and sewage treatment services. I applaud the government of Zimbabwe, which facilitated the African Development Bank grant to enable us to implement the Bulawayo Water Sewage Services Improvement Project, which aims at addressing the healthy and social well-being of the people in Bulawayo by improving its municipal water supply and sanitation services. A total of $34 million was availed to Bulawayo, and I note that last week an additional 18 million Zimbabwean dollars was availed by government to the city of Bulawayo, and this will also enhance service delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, we should also be cognizant of the effects of climate change in our region. Over the years, the sub-Saharan Africa has experienced reduced rainfall, resulting in limited inflows into our dams. This has negatively impacted water supplies and reduced the electricity generation, given that most of our electricity is generated from water. As a result of the prevailing climate conditions, there is need to strategically map the way forward as a city and country at large to alleviate the dilemma. Allow me to highlight that there is need for building resilience and managing uncertainty, climate change. Uncertainty. Can I take that one again? There is need for building resilience in managing uncertainty. Climate change has the capacity to make a significant impact on the hydrological cycle, leading to a rise in extreme weather events such as floods and drought. Ladies and gentlemen, the benefits of efficient provision of water and energy helps to alleviate poverty and fosters economic progress, as efficient water and energy supply are the backbone of the industry. The country is currently experiencing power shortages, and we require both public and private investments in alternative sources of energy, while we need to scrutinize regulatory frameworks in place so that so as to develop innovative business models that transform the country's energy sector. I assure you that government fully supports efforts by private sector players to establish solar energy generating plants, as this would reduce dependency on the national grid, lower the energy importation bill, and save scarce foreign currency. Ladies and gentlemen, the importance of sustainable solutions for water, sanitation, and energy management in Zimbabwe cannot be overemphasized, as they foster better economic and social status of our city and our country. Let us continue to work together as a team in addressing the challenges we face, because together we can achieve more.
I'm going to give you our own perspective of the water and sustainability of services here from a resident perspective. Since the beginning of the millennium, Zimbabwe has been facing severe water shortages, and the city of Bulawayo in particular has struggled to secure sustainable and long-term resources for over a century. Throughout its history, whether colonial or post-colonial, Bulawayo, which has traditionally been serviced by 5 dams built between 1958 and 1992, has struggled to meet the water demands of its ratepayers and consumers. Since the 1980s, most urban centers have been experiencing serious water problems attributable to a constellation of factors, among them poor rainfall, insufficient personnel trained in water management, population growth, a massive influx to the cities from rural areas, aging infrastructures we have seen, lack of funds, and I dare say corruption. As I have stated, whilst the shortage of water are climate related, they have been aggravated, in my view, by limited human intervention. At the risk of being lynched, it is my submission that the post-independence discourse that was predominantly about land while ignoring water was misguided and somewhat short-sighted. You can't have land without the necessary water to sustain that program. The water question only emerged 20 years after independence, a serious indictment on us. Meanwhile, Bulawayo, one of the driest and hottest parts in the region, had witnessed a huge population growth and a massive rural urban immigration, suffered a hemorrhage as industries relocated to Harare due to water shortages. Discussing poverty in third world countries, feminist scholars have coined the term feminization of poverty. I intend to borrow that term to refer to the water crisis, as our women are hardest hit by the water crisis and the mitigatory measures like water shedding for 48 hours. Mandatory flushing of toilets, you remember the September 2012 incidents, massive water cuts, property attachments for defaulting ratepayers, speculation of bills, stiffer and prohibitive fines for overconsumption. These have hit our women counterparts more than anyone else. They spend hours in water queues. The emergence of the water question 20 years after post-independence in the form of the Water Act, Chapter 20, Section 24, and its creature, the Zimbabwe National Water Authority Act, Chapter 20, Section 25, can only be categorized as a case of water blindness on the part of our post-colonial state. Our perception, ladies and gentlemen, is that water for both central government, in spite of lip service to the contrary, is a cash cow with over 80% of local authorities' revenue coming from water bills. Government then sought to enter the fitting trough and enacted the Water Act and created ZINWA. We all remember the fierce contestation between central government and cities, particularly Bulawayo, led by the then executive mayor, Ncube, not so much, in my view, out of altruistic reasons and concern for us as ratepayers and consumers, but out of the money that can be made from water. Because water is seen as a cash cow by both central government and local authorities. Indeed, water has been commodified, as we have heard the high-end crew from cities like Gwanda over huge bills by ZINWA. In fact, recently we were told that ZINWA is raising the tariffs by 400%. I'm not sure how consumers they will take that. This is not surprising because from its inception, the operation of ZINWA was meant to be a commercial enterprise. This comes as no surprise, but you can only surmise that the supremacy of the market ideology is a mechanism for regulating water use emanates from market principles because of the international donors who bankrolled local authority reforms. Ladies and gentlemen, research indicates that Zimbabwe is about 10,000 dams, more dam per capita than any of its regional counterparts. Is it not therefore ironical that all the major urban centers, Bulawayo, Mtare, Gweru, Maswingo, Harare, are plagued by inadequate water supply? With all those many dams, I'm often reminded of this writer who talks about this man who is stranded in the sea, who is marooned. And he talks about water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. We first saw the first signs of these market-driven reforms in 2014, when central government recommended that local authorities needed to migrate from water post-payment to the prepayment regime, as in the case proposed by the ZINWA takeover of water. Is Bulawayo residents who resisted that attempt to privatize and commodify water by running an over 18 months anti-prepaid water meter campaigns. It is that kind of campaign that we are, as residents, ready to resume should government embark on prepaid water meters again. This is informed by our belief that water is a constitutional right and that its prepayment poses public health challenges, such as waterborne diseases affecting mostly the poor. We saw the example of this in KZN. It would also be, we believe, break the social capital and solidarity that citizens derive from communal lifestyle, such as assistance in, for example, fire breaks and in bereavement. When there is water shedding, we have also witnessed a communication blackout by the City Council on how long the water shedding would last, as was the case sometime in July. While we appreciate the need for rehabilitation, we feel Council should communicate timely and also provide Plan B, since a number of boreholes that were put in place as an alternative are not functional. And water bowsers, quite often, we find them inadequate. However, we have a few recommendations that we think should be put in place. There's a need for a new discourse that is not market-driven, but that puts the residents at the center of human development. And I'm glad the town engineer has indicated that going forward, that's going to be the place, and we as ratepayers pledge to play our part by not discarding stainless steel cutlery into the sewer system. We also think that there should be fair access of water by all. Institutional consumers of water, like schools and churches, should be encouraged to drill boreholes so that if there is water shedding, they still don't run out of water. But above all, we think that there should be an improved management of water resources in the Water Act, because I believe that with 10,000 dams and other water bodies, we can do better. I'm often reminded by what a friend of mine was telling me. He was studying at the University of Makerere. He says at one stage they had no water at the university, but across they could see Lake Victoria full of water. After that, he went to study at the Maldives Island, totally surrounded by the sea. But Maldives Island had been able to desalinize the water from the sea so that people could have access. But Uganda could not do that to a dam that was near the university. It speaks to our lack of capacity that we need to do more. In terms of sanitation, we think that residents should be allowed to, where they can, to install and operate biogas plants at their backyards. I'm not sure how that will work out. We also believe that going forwards, perhaps the city could put in bylaws about water harvesting measures, which will see future housing developments being fitted with geysers and water tanks so that they can harvest the water that is quite often lost to the Indian Ocean. We also have problems that we think need to be addressed. I'm going to briefly touch on some of the challenges before I finish on the recommendations. Reference has been made to Country Park. Residents there, some of them at least use blade toilets and some use wells. We're told it's easy to get water there. It's a source of water, posing a potential health hazard. Mabutweni, the home ownership scheme there seems to have been hampered by the issue of toilets. We have recommended that part of the water retention fund be used to rehabilitate this. And we think also that part of the CDF money, perhaps Comrade Minister could assist us in that respect, could also be used to assist Mabutweni residents to have individual toilets so that they can then have proper home ownership so that we can improve sanitation in that area. Yeah, and this one is the elephant in the house, which we think the minister will assist us with as residents. We have challenges of water and sanitation emanating from the Umkuza and City Council boundary disputes in areas like Mbundane. Residents that stay there will testify to that. They are using blade toilets, they are using wells and boreholes, again with attendant health challenges. They do not have water from the City Council because of those boundary disputes. At least that's what we get from residents there. As residents, we feel there is urgent need to resolve these disputes so that the people can have access to proper water and sanitation services. In Rangemo, we've had cases also of double billing by Umkuza and Bulawayo City Council of residents there. Partly, I think, emanating from the same problem, the border disputes between the two local authorities. So our recommendation, therefore, going forward, is that we put an end to boundary disputes. It is something perhaps that the city authorities and Umkuza should be looking into to put an end to it, because in the process of those disputes, it is we, the residents and water consumers, who suffer. We are aware that there is a water crisis committee that is in place, but we think it could be more proactive and not meet because water shedding is in place, but meet as regularly because we know we have a permanent water crisis that is in place from time immemorial. Perhaps their meetings could be a more regular feature on a more permanent basis, and then that would help us going forwards. The engineer has been assuring us about the call center, but we also feel as residents that there could be a prompt response to the water and sewer base, but he has told us that the call center does not repay the base. Well, but the call center can relay the information to the relevant place. I know these are challenges, but they are challenges that can be met and addressed. Those of you who, like me, received a colonial education, well, perhaps I risk being lynched, but it was a good education. I remember one of the things that for me was an inspiration for many years. During the Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage, Carthage suffered serious setbacks until General Hannibal came into the picture. And one thing that I'm always proud of was that General Hannibal was black. Rome was proud that it could not be attacked because it was defended by the Alps mountains. But what Hannibal did to overcome that challenge, a challenge which I think as Bulawayo we can also overcome, Hannibal came up with a new strategy. He decided to attack Rome when least expected, when Rome was complacent, attacked in winter when there was so much snow. Came from the Alps mountains where Rome did not expect any attack to come from because Rome was very well defended. He did not use horses. Instead, he came with an army that was mounted on elephants. So what am I talking about? That we can be innovative and come up with more strategies that speak to conserving water in a manner that is sustainable. And General Hannibal was able to defeat the mighty Roman Empire. And I was particularly proud when I grew up, when I discovered that General Hannibal was black like me. But he came up with innovative strategies that we can also come up with by refusing to think within the box and come up with other strategies that will reduce our water consumption. But also as residents that we will also continue to pay our bills on time and that will not have double billing. And finally, let me leave every one of you with this quotation from Genevieve Meleville. He says, "Deal with your situation knowing that you are the generator of that, you are the generator of what you do, of what you have, and what you are."